So I am so done with buying these regular, boring TKL mechanical keyboards. They're just really big and bulky. A lot of these big box brand name keyboard manufacturers don't offer really good reprogrammability, and you can never split them. So one of the things that I really wanted to get better at is using Vim, which is a text editor for programmers. You know, it looks really cool, but basically the idea is to always keep your fingers on the home row. And then I noticed that a lot of YouTube influencers, programmers like the Primogen, were touch typing really far apart using their fancy $500, $400 Kinesis keyboard. And I was like, so maybe that's the reason why I've never really learned Vim, is because it just felt so uncomfortable and so unnatural to always keep my two hands close together. I would start developing a lot of pain when trying to use the Vim movements, which require you to use the home row, J, K, L, and H to move and manipulate and chop up text to be very fluid with your text editor. I hate using my mouse. I hate using these really boring, dumb mechanical keyboards. I mean, come on, we live in 2024. All these like Keychron and stuff like that, they're making all these keyboards like nonstop with all the customization, but none of them offer really good split ergo designs. So in came in the Ultimate Hacking Keyboard version 2. So here it is, the split design. It just feels so satisfying to do that. And of course, the killer feature, well, besides how beautiful it looks and everything about that, is the tenting. This to me instantly reduced all the pain I had in my wrist when using typing. Now don't get me wrong, just having this keyboard lie flat, even without the palm rest, being able to open up your chest, put your hands there was just so many improvements that came to my typing experience, especially when I was interacting with my computer. Just everything felt more natural. I never had to reach for the mouse, or at least I do it a lot less often, mostly when I'm browsing and stuff like that. But there's ways to get around that, of course, with Vimium Chrome extension. But this feels so good. This angle is perfect. I don't know, like I didn't want to go extreme. You can angle it like kind of insane. Like you have to just obviously change it over here. But like this is a lot higher angle. I mean, I could get used to it, but I don't know. I like the default configuration. Another thing that impressed me with this keyboard were the default key mappings. I find that having the arrow keys over here, where the JKL home row, the right hand home row, is very intuitive. All I have to do is hold the modifier key, either in my spacebar or this backspace, and being able to just hold it down, quickly go into the arrow keys, up, down, home, end. This is so important for manipulating text. Right now I'm just looking at my MacBook right now, and it's so crazy to be able to like have that fluid motion. So my old workflow would involve me constantly moving. So I would be, this thing is so cheap, by the way. It sounds so cheap, but anyway. So I would be typing, blah, 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 and then I want to select text. I would have to move my hand all the way here. And in Windows, you have to use home and end to like select rows and text like that, or page up, page down, all these keys that I use in this TKL, or even the function rows. I'm gonna explain how I got over that. Having to move back and forth was just so inefficient. It really took me out of the state of flow. And the worst thing was having to reach the mouse. Like that was just, it really slowed me down. Now, if there's one accessory that I highly recommend that you get with this keyboard, it's probably going to be the palm rest. Now, right now you see I have the wooden one. I also tried out the silicone black one. I have to say that one is also very, very excellent. So both of them just feel and just function so well. Now I used to always have to use this kind of ugly 3M wrist pad with my traditional keyboard, and I like that it was long because I could also have my mouse there. But this is so genius. Like just having the two halves have their own respective wrist pad. It's so streamlined. It's such a beautiful work of art. I just love the attention to detail. So this definitely made it much more comfortable to use. Even though without it, I'd say it's definitely doable. Although I do highly recommend getting something like this if you want to save a little bit of money. If you're not going to buy the tenting kit or the palm accessory, then do just get one of these. These are really inexpensive, and you're going to have a more natural incline. The keyboard includes 4 adjustable legs, enabling both positive and negative tilting or tenting at modest angles. My favorite configuration was tenting, or simply keeping the keyboard flat on the surface. Therefore, it's not necessary to purchase the additional riser add-on for tenting support. However, do note that the angle is limited at only 9 degrees for the left half and 7 degrees for the right half. Also, the legs are very lightweight, making them ideal for those who prefer a minimalistic look or want to travel a lot with the case. So some folks may find this style more appealing than the heavier duty tenting add-on. So one of the killer features that really caught my attention with this keyboard was the fact that you could have these modules, and these modules would extend the functionality of the keyboard. This is already an amazing keyboard on its own, just like this, but this also makes it even more advanced. There's 3 different ways of using a mouse. This one is a trackball. I'm gonna plug it in, and then you can see my mouse is just moving around. On this one over here, this is on the left side, this is the 3-key thumb cluster. And what's really cool is that this uses the same PBT keycaps, the high quality ones, except they're blank. And they use the same switches that you can choose. We're gonna talk about the switches, like the specific customization a little bit later, but let's just plop that in. And the engineering, the effort, that the R&D that went into this, how the two halves disconnect and reconnect is just nothing short of amazing. It's just, this is why I think it's the higher price is definitely justified. So with this, you get a whole bunch of functionality. So you get 2 thumb clusters and 1 extra key over here. So you can rest your thumb over here. It's very comfortable. You get 2 keys, which can be remapped to anything. They don't necessarily have to be mouse clicks or anything like that. You will also notice a small ball on the thumb cluster. This is used for scrolling vertically or horizontally, which is very useful for long documents and websites. However, the resolution of this trackball is not high enough to act as a mouse. The next right-hand accessory is also a mouse, and it's commonly known as track point or the little red nib or nub. This reminds me of the good old days from Lenovo or IBM where you had those ThinkPads, and then you could just keep your hands on the keyboard and then use your index finger to, move the mouse around. And there's something about the symmetry, having these 2 halves together. It just looks very, very pretty in this way. I don't know why, just having these kind of complete the keyboard. And you can rest your hand here. You can use your index finger to move around and click and stuff like that. But here's one of the craziest things about this keyboard is that it has a mouse feature built in. So you don't really need this accessory. This kind of blew me away. So you hold the mouse modifier, or you can double tap to lock it, and you can see this very useful indicator over here. It says that we're in the mouse mode, and I can use the arrow keys, the J, K, L, and I, and I can move around. I can hold a modifier key to increase the speed, and if I want to click on something, let's say I want to click here, and this really helps with the workflow because you're typically going to have your hands on the home rows. Sometimes there's situations where you have to reach the mouse. You can't use Alt Tab or Vimium or some way of clicking on something. So you just have to go for the mouse. Unfortunately, our lives cannot be fully mouseless. You just simply go here and then you're in, and then you can just click on something like that. Do you really need these accessories? If you're trying to save money, I think the mouse control on the keyboard is very intuitive and it definitely serves the purpose. I have to say, out of the 3 accessories between all of these, but I really like the actual trackpad. So this one to me, I like the most because you get things like being able to scroll up and down with 2 fingers. I believe you can zoom in, but right now it's not set up correctly for that. And best of all, if you're gonna say, type something like whatever, you can go in and just tap. I find it the tapping on the actual trackpad to be a little bit easier than clicking on this. Being able to just go here, you keep your finger on where it is and you just tap it. It's just very intuitive. And yes, this is a super small trackpad, but it definitely works. Now the thumb cluster on the left side is amazing because it gives you more options with modifier keys. I actually ended up binding these to going backward and forward, and this has a special functionality. And then I can go into layers, and then I can apply more different functionalities with this. If you want to learn about my specific key mapping tricks and tips, I'm going to make a whole dedicated video on that because it's such an amazing topic to talk about. Check it out. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to see that. So in terms of customization of this keyboard, you have a lot of options. First of all, when you purchase this, you can choose between a different case color. And of course, you can customize the palm rest. You can choose a black or the wooden one. I chose black for the case color. I think it blends well in my office environment, which is predominantly a black table, but I was very tempted by some of the more brighter colors. It looks very nice. You can of course replace the keycaps, but the ones that are included are really high quality. They are PBT keycaps. They're not ABS. So that basically means that they're gonna last a lot longer in terms of not fading and becoming shiny. As you can see, I have my home keys that are special ABS keycaps. I just wanted to use them here temporarily, but you can see how shiny they look, and they look kind of very oily. Compare that to the PBT keycaps, which are, just feel very nice to type on. One of the things I really liked about this keyboard is that it uses an OEM profile, I believe, which is a keycap profile that is very traditional with a lot of other keyboards. And this makes it very easy to type on. I find it more accurate than having to use one of those more niche type of keycaps like DSA and a lot of stuff that is offered from Keychron or more of those boutique mechanical keyboard shops. They like to throw in their own special type of keycap. They can have a very small surface area. They can be very slanted. I just don't like that. I think regular OEM profile keycaps are amazing. They're very well-rounded, great for gaming. Now the key switches are hot swappable, but I'll tell you one little thing I did. So because my right thumb is kind of weak and I like to use this modifier key as a backspace and a modifier key, I replaced it with a Gateron Clear, which is a very light switch. It's 35 grams and whew, it's nice. Like just pressing there, it just really kind of reduced some finger pain. So if you want to customize it, maybe you want the control to be clicky, maybe you want the enter to have a different feel to it or something like that, or maybe you want WASD because you're gaming, maybe you want really strong black switches, like which are typically heavier switches that are harder to press on, you can just customize it all, or you can completely change the profile, the sound profile, the feel of your keyboard. So this is the switch pack, and the ones that come included in this keyboard, or at least the ones that I picked online, are called Kailh BOX Red. And I think these are, you know, hit the sweet spot. First of all, they're like red linear switches to very typical of like Cherry MX Red, similar type of force. I think they hit the sweet spot in terms of not being too soft to type on, that when you rest your fingers on it, you kind of start accidentally hitting keys. But I also don't find it too hard that it becomes fatiguing to type. So I think this is a very good blend. Now, apparently this box design is supposed to reduce key wobble, but I didn't really notice anything about that. But I have to say, they're factory lubed, they feel really smooth, I like how they sound, and it just offers a very nice typing experience. But let's say, you know, maybe you get bored after a while and you want to start swapping out these keycaps for something else, try something new. Well, this sampler over here is pretty cool. What ended up happening is that I tried a lot of these different samples and I didn't really want to use any other one except for the red linears. I like these ones, they're quite nice. But I really don't like tactile and I don't like clicky switches. They're just too excruciating to the ear. So being able to hot swap these keys is nothing short of amazing. And I really appreciate that they include a nice keycap and switch puller, which is a very nice addition. Now let's talk about the physical layout of this keyboard. First of all, this obviously feels very premium so far. Definitely justified the high price. I think it's well engineered. Just the, like I said, the engineering, the R&D effort to create these two halves to go together is just simply amazing. So so you can see, this is all held through strong magnets. So you can simply just put it together like this and it's nice and sturdy. And then bam, I want to go split. Put it down here, just like that. So one thing that's really cool about this keyboard is that you have thumb modifiers. And this, to me, this is the most important aspect of this keyboard. The fact that you can utilize both your thumbs, your right and left side, means that you can use your pinky less. And I find that your right pinky is overburdened with the amount of keys that it needs to hit. For example, it needs to hit the backspace, the enter, the left shift, all that stuff. But being able to move some of that responsibility into a right modifier key, it really helps out. So this actually becomes my backspace and it just feels so comfortable. When I go back to a regular keyboard, I sometimes hit the space bar. I try to do backspace, but it obviously doesn't work. So I wish just in general, like a regular TK keyboard, they should just break up that space bar. I have no idea why these keyboards are so inefficient. The fact that you have this one huge long space bar and it's one thumb only using that, it's just like, it just mind boggles me. So this is such a smarter, more efficient design. And what I really like about the placement of the space bar and the modifier key is that it just feels so comfortable. So if I rest my finger there, just a neutral position, my thumbs are just resting there, ready to hit the space. Now, obviously we hit the space a ton of times, and the fact that it's below the V, perfect. That is perfect for me. I don't have to overextend it. And what's even better is that this is something that I really like about the layout, is that you can move your Alt, or for Windows, or your Command key closer towards the center of the keyboard. So this makes it so comfortable to Alt tab. I'm Alt tabbing. That to me is huge, because before on a traditional keyboard, you would have to move it all the way down here. It would feel very uncomfortable to use your left thumb to hit that key. Just for a side-by-side comparison, you can see Control, Windows, and then the Alt key or Command key for Mac. And then you have your space bar. All this space here is just wasted. Your thumb hits this all the time, but you could have the Alt key over here, and then you could just get way more ergonomic. You just need to stop using these keyboards. Like, stop buying these keyboards, vote with your money, start investing in a split keyboard design, because your thumbs and fingers and your long-term career as an office worker, you know, if you're a video editor, programmer, accountant, whatever, you're just really going to get your money back, and for just your health in general and enjoyment of using a PC or Mac. Now, my favorite software feature is being able to have a dual functionality. And they do a really good job about this, because some other implementations of dual functionality keys can be almost not usable at all, especially in the case of what I'm in the way that I'm using it. So the spacebar is very, very used a lot. I use space to go forward, or this to go back, and I hit space and backward a lot. If you hold it down, what it does is that it activates the modifier. So this happens on both. They both go into the modifier layer, which has more functionality and, you know, arrow keys and different symbols and whatnot. You can type really, really fast, use the space, and it doesn't interfere with going into the modifier. I don't know, the tweaking, the defaults, the milliseconds that they do, it just works perfectly. Whereas I tried it on like the Wooting keyboard, the 60% keyboard, and I found that using the dual functionality, they call it mod tap, it was just unusable. I had tried to have my spacebar to be a modifier, and I would be typing really fast, space, space, and then it would just activate the modifications. Now having this modifier row is really, really good because now you have an extra row of keys. So what ends up happening is that when I hold this down, the D becomes delete and Q becomes escape, and also becomes escape. And what I really want to emphasize here is that you're not using your pinky for backspace and enter. So instead of using enter with your pinky, I'm gonna hold my modifier key and just hit enter. Feels so good, like being able to roll over, use the arrow keys, and then hit enter. It just feels really, really good. You don't have to like, you're just kind of within this cluster of keys. So it feels very, very comfortable. And another core principle when you use a reprogrammable keyboard, remappable, is that you want to have redundant keys, especially for overutilized keys. So you want it on both halves. So let's say I'm using my mouse or I'm a video editing because it's a very mouse intensive process. I can just hit modifier, enter, modifier, delete, or I can do go home, go to the end, go up and down and stuff like that. So basically I never have to move my hand back on the other side of the keyboard if I'm in the state of flow video editing. And those are common things I do. I use the delete key a lot. So you just don't want to have the backspace key here. You also want a delete key on one side here, because you never know what position you're going to be in. You want to be able to reach your most overused keys. So this is one of the coolest things about having a reprogrammable keyboard, is that you can customize it to your liking, to your workflows. And of course there's macros. For example, this one here deletes an entire line. I just press it down. Now, of course, if you use a regular code IDE or text editor, a more advanced one like Vim or IntelliJ or VS Code, you can have a key command that does that, but this works universally across the entire operating system. Let's say you're on a website, option A, option B, and let's say I want to delete it. I'm just going to press this key here and it deletes it. Before, I would have to go to the front, highlight this, delete it, and then hit the backspace. Instead, it did it all in one motion. Boom, done. Now, for more advanced macros like one-shot modifiers, dual function keys, Vim-like recording macros, and even a mouse jiggler, the Ultimate Hacking Keyboard has its own proprietary programming language to accomplish those advanced features. I also found that their smart macro programming language is more user-friendly than some of the open source alternatives like QMK. And best of all, you don't need to learn a C programming language or how to flash your keyboard's firmware. It's all very intuitive in the agent software with plenty of documentation. In fact, you can even use ChatGPT to craft your own scripts, which I will share how to do in a separate video. So be sure to check that link in the description. Now, another thing that really caught my eye with this keyboard was the fact that there were actually modifier keys below the spacebar. So right over here, it's a little bit different, but it's a clicky function layer. Now the function layer, because it's not, I never really got used to like going beyond my spacebar and just hitting this, which I probably should. I should try and use it a little bit more, but obviously it's not as nice as using a mechanical key. This is more of a clicky one. But anyways, I use this to control my media, and I can use this to quickly switch between two different profiles. Here's my CS2 profile, which is an online first-person shooter on competitive game. I go back to PC. If I want to go back to Mac, which I'm on right now, it's very fast. And you can notice that there is a RGB light underneath that indicates it's red. That indicates that is a key mapping. And what's really cool about the RGB, not only does it look really, really pretty and nice to look at, and you can have all these cool effects, it's actually very functional in that it tells you, it reminds you of what type of key you're looking at. So specific keys like the modifier keys are blue. And if you ever switch to a different key layout, you can see that these ones over here, these control my music up, volume down, play, pause, go from next track. Everything's revolved around these arrow keys. It's very intuitive, you know, like volume means going up, or changing to the next track means going to the sideways. And you can see that there's a sideway key over here. So just being able to do that, quickly play and pause my music, it just feels so nice. I love that feeling. And one thing I started to notice a lot, even though I shouldn't be looking at my keyboard, is that this displayer over here is very, very useful. Instead of having to know like what profile am I on, I found that kind of confusing with other keyboards like my Wooting keyboard. I was like, am I on the PC or Mac profile? But having it clearly written here, and by the way, you can customize it, obviously. I have CS2 over here. and just knowing what modifier key you have and stuff like that. This is a really good use of an LED display. Now, one of the things that I need to talk about is my experience using this keyboard. At first, I thought, well, you know, because this is not a ortholinear keyboard, it's still using the more traditional staggered linear design, which I preferred, and I really wanted this type of design because, trust me, having to go back from one layout to another layout would really impact my productivity, especially when I'm using my MacBook on the go, which is also a QWERTY staggered layout. Initially, it was very, very hard to use it at work. I actually stopped using it at work for the first day because it was slowing me down so much. Instead, I kind of just use this on the weekend, and it's not that hard because you still have like a very typical type of keyboard experience. You have your controls here. I'm very used to using my control modifier keys with my pinky, so it felt very familiar. I think it just took maybe 2 or 3 days to just get the hang of the modifier keys, and once after that, it was really like easy to use over time. Now, one of the most ironic things is that this keyboard actually taught me how to properly touch type. Before, in the past, I would type with maybe especially on my right hand, I would type maybe with 2 fingers, maybe 3 sometimes, but I wouldn't use my pinky or anything like that. And now, because of it's a split design, it really forced me, it was a forcing function to really learn how to touch type. And some tips on how to learn how to touch type: one is to cut your nails. That really does help, kind of with the tactile feeling of it. But I use a website called keybr.com. I'll leave a link in the description. And that just gives you reps on how to train your key. And what you'll notice is that your left hand is really strong because, of course, the QWERTY design layout is overutilizing your right hand. As a gamer, you know WSD so well. You really exercise your left thumb in order to use a spacebar, but this right thumb is very atrophied. It took a while, but after some training, about maybe after a week, I got back to 100 words per minute, which I was really proud of. And I actually think I type faster now than a regular traditional QWERTY keyboard. So trust me, when you get this keyboard, it's going to be a little bit difficult the first couple of days, but after you get that initial hump and you just deliberately practice, you go on monkey type once a day, you practice for 10 minutes, you're going to start really loving the keyboard. Now, in terms of gaming, another huge benefit with this keyboard is that it doesn't depart from a traditional gaming keyboard. In fact, I use this for CSGO, and I kind of prefer it. It just feels very good. The feeling of the keyboard is it's just a really good typing experience, but also a very good gaming experience. Most of the time I have it flat like this. I love the fact that I can put it back. A lot of other tenting kits require you to like fiddle with it and adjust it. You don't have this level of customization. Trust me, you really want this if you are a gamer. And it just feels like I'm back into a normal gaming keyboard. Obviously, I'm gonna have this out of the way and then get my gaming mouse. And it just feels very comfortable. Now, spacebar is typically used for jumping, and I found that the perfect position of the spacebar allows me to do that. I don't miss anything about this. So hitting Control Shift to slow down walk in CSGO, CS2, it's just really good for gaming. I didn't experience any latency. And if you're worried about using modifier keys on your spacebar, you don't want to interfere with that, I created a dedicated profile called CS2. You can see CS2 over here. And that's just more of a basic key mapping layout. It doesn't have any modifier key, so it means that if I hold down the spacebar, it doesn't enable any modification. So if I want to go back to PC, I can just go like that. It's really fast. So overall with gaming, no problems. In fact, I think it's a really good gaming keyboard, and no latency problems or anything like that. In terms of support, the Ultimate Hacking Keyboard has a very active founder and community. Software updates to their agent software are consistent, and their online store offers spare parts, ensuring first-class repairability support. I personally joined their community forum and perused the discussions. I was impressed with the level of activity and the interesting, useful conversations taking place, especially around advanced macros. I highly recommend participating if you have or plan on getting the Ultimate Hacking Keyboard. Alright, so to wrap up this video, I have to say the Ultimate Hacking Keyboard has really transformed the way I interact with my PC or Mac. So I no longer have to reach for the mouse or go to the arrow keys. I don't have to interrupt my workflow. I can just simply engage the modifier row and then continue using the arrow keys if I wish. This has been a game changer in terms of how I use my keyboard. And personally, for myself, I find that being able to type more comfortably is really going to help with my wrist pain. So far, I have not felt any wrist pain because of the tenting. It's just so much more enjoyable to use my keyboard. And to me, I just look forward to waking up in the morning and just start typing code or typing words and stuff like that. It is a ton of fun, and it really has re-engaged me with my computer. So that's it for this video. If you want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description to all the stuff I talked about. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section down below. I will see you in the next video.